Hello, this is Education About Stuff, and in this video we're going to be doing the extended Euclidean algorithm. So the problem we're going to be solving is the inverse of 23 mod 40. Pause the video, write out the table, and we'll get started. So the very first thing you want to do is obviously draw the table. Once you've done that, then you look at your leftmost number. So ours is 23. Then we have mod 40, and you put them in your table in the remainder column. So your rightmost number will be the first one up here, so ours is 40, and then your leftmost number, ours is 23, will be the second number here. We're not dividing anything yet, so we're leaving the first two quotient cells blank. And for S and T, we're going to put in 1 and 0, and then the opposite on the bottom, 0 and 1. This is just what we start with for S and T for each. So now we can get down to the meat of things. So we want to divide 40 by 23, and it looks like we can only fit 23 into 40 once. So the actual division, you'll get some kind of decimal, right? But it'll be 1 point something. So the 1 at the very beginning of that decimal is the important part. So that's our quotient. 1 is our quotient for 40 divided by 23. Now when you do a division like that and you end up with a decimal, you're always going to end up with a remainder. And hopefully you know this, but if you don't, that's what the mod is, or modulo. So 23 mod 40 is essentially 23 divided by 40, but it returns the remainder that we have left. So again, if we take this 40 divided by 23 up here that we just did, and we kept the 1 for our quotient, you will end up with a pretty hefty remainder of 17. So when you divide 40 by 23, 23 can only fit into 40 once. So how much is left? How much is left after this division? Well, we have 17 left afterwards, and that's the remainder. So now comes kind of the tricky part. It's finding our S and T values. So the way this works is we do a subtraction and a multiplication here. So you want to look at the S value 2 cells up. So we're not looking at 0, but we're looking at 1. So that's 2 cells up. We got 1, 2 cells up. So we're going to do 1, and then minus our quotient. So our quotient's 1, like we just talked about. So it'll be 1 minus 1, but then we have to do a multiplication. So we have 1 minus 1 times, and now we look at the 0. So now we're putting the 0 in at the top. So just to recap, it's 2 cells up in our S values minus the quotient times 1 cell up. So I'm going to write that down right here. So we have 2 up minus quotient. Here I'm just going to put in Q, and then multiplied by 1 up. And it's the same thing for T. So we're going to look at 2 cells up, which is 0. And we have minus our quotient, which is 1. And then multiplied by 1 cell up, which is 1. So now if we remember our PEDMAS rule, we have to do the multiplication first. So negative 1 times 0 is 0. So 1 minus 0 is just 1. So our S value for our first iteration here is just 1. And here for E, it's the same thing. So we're doing minus 1 times 1, which is minus 1. So 0 minus 1 will end up being minus 1. Alright, so here we're going to use our last two values from our remainder, and we're going to divide them just like we did here. So here we did 40 divided by 23, so that's 40 divided by 23. And for this next quotient that we're going to calculate, we're going to do 23 divided by 17. So we're kind of like scaling down the remainder column. So 23 divided by 17, we're going to get 1 again. And our remainder will be 6. So now, if we look at our little formula down here, 2 up minus q times 1 up, we go 2 up, so 1, 2, so we have 0 minus our quotient, which is 1, and then multiplied by 1 up, which is 1. So we're going to end up with negative 1, just because negative 1 times 1 is negative 1, so 0 minus 1 is obviously negative 1. I'm going to do the same thing for t, so 2 up is 1, and we have minus our quotient, which is 1, and then multiplied by the first cell up, which is 1. So that will be equal to it's negative 1 times negative 1, which is just 1, so we have 1 plus 1, which is 2. So again, now we're dividing 17 by 6, and this time we end up with kind of a more significant quotient, because 6 can fit into 17 3 times. So when we do that, oh no, it does not fit into 17 3 times. That would be wrong. It fits into it 2 times. So when we do 6 times 2, that's 12, so our remainder will be 5, because 17 minus 12 is 5, right? So when we divide 17 by 6, we get 2, and then we have 5 left over. So now we use our little formula again. We're doing 2 up minus our quotient, which is 2, and then multiplied by negative 1. So we're going to end up with 1 plus 2, which is 3. So now we're going to do the same thing for t again. So now we have negative 1 minus our quotient, which is 2, multiplied by 2. This is equal to negative 5. And Excel doesn't really like that. Okay, so I can't seem to, like, I don't want to try and figure out Excel's thing, but whenever I put in the equation, it just goes to true. Not enough of a master with Excel to fix that right now, so I just put in negative 5. We already know how to solve it with our little formula down here. So that's negative 5, and I'll just input the values for S and T just so that we can keep this video under 10 minutes. So we have negative 4 for S, and then we have 7 for T, and then we end up with 23 for our final one, and negative 40, which are very similar to our original numbers. And underneath our remainder of 5, we have a remainder of 1, remainder of 0, and quotients of 1 and 5. So I hope that that's clear enough. We can see how to do everything with the first 5 iterations, going from 0 to 4, and these ones I just filled in the values without actually showing how to do it. So what you're looking at is when your remainder is equal to 1. So when our remainder is equal to 1, which is at iteration 5, we have an S value of negative 4, and what is important is the T value. So in a question like this, what is the inverse of 23 mod 40? The answer is going to be 7, just because when our remainder is 1, our T value is equal to 7. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for some more videos.